Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us again as we go back to the video store. I am your host, Brett Glasser, and today, calling into the video store, we have Michael Nathanson. Michael has an extensive television career, popping up in everything, including Law & Order, to Orange is the New Black, to 2017's The Punisher. You've also seen Michael in a bunch of films, including Side Effects with Jude Law, as well as 2013's The Wolf of Wall Street. Michael is not only an awesome and charismatic guy, but he is also a true movie fan at heart. So it was a pleasure to talk to him about his memories of video stores in New York City, his film and TV career, as well as a plea for the movie Time Bandit. That is the most passionate one I have ever heard in my life. So make sure you stick around for that. So it is with a great pleasure that we turn on the open sign here at the video store for our next guest, Michael Nathanson. Michael Nathanson, thank you so much for calling into the video store to chat with us. Great to have you on the show. How the hell are you doing?
Video store still exists.
Oh yes, we are open 24 hours. I really appreciate you calling in.
That's a pleasure.
So we always start off the show by just wanting to hear your memories of the long-lost video stores. Some people have memories of the mom-and-pop shops. Others grew up on Blockbuster in Hollywood. What can you tell us?
Gosh, well, back in my day, it was all reel-to-reel. Just kidding. I'm not that old. Yeah, it's funny. You know, I was thinking about this, and I was trying to think of, like, I grew up in New York City, and there were definitely some mom-and-pop video stores we used to go to. There was one called Champagne Video. That was my favorite name of any video store I've ever seen, Champagne Video.
Love it, yeah.
And I remember there was, like, a champagne glass, like, tipping over into another one, and, like, some of it's, like, splashing out, like it was being toasted or something. And
amazing.
That was on, I think it was on First Avenue and, like, the Upper East Side, and yeah, it was like your classic sort of mom and pop video store. I don't think they had a porn section. I probably would have been, like, super excited about it at my age back then, but I don't believe that existed at that particular one. Although in New York City, like, so many of them used to have that curtain, the classic, like, curtain with the X-rated in the back.
Oh, of course. The store that I grew up in had, like, these cowboy saloon doors that were very mysterious. You know.
Exactly. Which doesn't seem really like that. Not a great masking for, like, kids to actually not be able to, like, you can always see, like, who didn't see into there, like, somehow.
And not to mention the kids section is probably 20 feet away.
Oh, it's right next to it, of course. They don't care. Yeah, it's so funny. So, like, I remember that place. That was a great place. But, yeah, I mean, I to be honest, like, most of my memories, like, there were a few of those, but, like, Blockbuster came in, in the 80s, and that's really when I was, like, the late 80s that Blockbuster started? Is that about right? Mid-80s?
Yeah, 80s? Absolutely. Yeah, and that was kind of the controversy, is that they started, some of the mom-and-pop shops couldn't keep up, and started closing their doors.
Yeah, I remember that, but, like, yeah, I have to say I was basically weaned on Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, and I mean, the best thing about Blockbuster and Hollywood Video was when they were, like, clearing out all their stock to make room for new tapes, and they would, like, sell off the tapes for, like, $2, $3. I would totally go there and clean up.
That's exactly how I built up a lot of my collection, was when they had those sales.
Dude, I had the greatest VHS collection. It was legendary. I actually carted it, or most of it, to college with me. And, like, year to year, like, I think I lived in, like, maybe 3 different places in college, and I would lug this gigantic video collection with me everywhere I went, and, it was all collected from, like, my childhood and into high school, and I used to have this, like, bookcase set up in every room I ever had in college, whether it was my fraternity or I was in, like, a dorm, and one of my best friends from college, he nicknamed me Mike TV very early on, obvious for obvious reasons. But like, people would come over, like, friends would come over, and they'd be like, "Can I borrow one of these?" And, like, I was like, "Oh, I should probably start my own little video store in my dorm room, because I have, like, so many videotapes." And now they're all landfill, basically.
Oh man, yeah. Lots of lost collections over the years,
Yeah, sad. But I kept a few goodies, like, I kept the OG Star Wars trilogy I have, and the THX widescreen, that, like, flat box of the 3 movies.
Absolutely.
And they look great. Like, if you I haven't transferred those to a DVD. I should. I've been meaning to, but, like, because I have bootlegs of the original, the non-special edition ones, but they looked great. I remember they looked great, and my parents still have a VCR, so I was over there at one point, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this looks like, and they're pretty good quality, like some of those tapes, like not terrible.
This is before they took out the Wolfman in the cantina scene, that type of.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes. But yeah, anyway, man, that's Blockbuster has. It's so funny, and I remember like when Clerks came out, and that was such a. That was like the classic. That I feel like my memories of video stores are Blockbuster and then the video store and Clerks. Those are like my two video store memories.
Oh, absolutely.
Those memories are, yeah. And Brian O'Halloran's a good buddy of mine. So like sometimes it's just so funny to like be with him, and all I want to ask him, I always like I stare at him and I reference like video store things, and he's just like, please stop. I'm sorry.
It's kind of crazy though how as a kid I hung out in our local video store. It was at a mile from my house, and I was easily the annoying 10-year-old who just during the summers would hang out and just became friends with the staff, but I'm sure they absolutely hated me. But when you watch that movie Clerks, some of those things that happen in the video stores, it's just, I guess now it's just lost on a lot of the younger generation, because the idea of having to go to a physical spot to get your videos is just, an absolute unknown,
It's so, I mean, there was something so great about when they didn't have it, when it was like, oh yeah, like you'd go to the wall, and it was just all empty boxes, and there was no tape behind them, and you're like, God damn it! And you go up to the top, and then there was like sometimes there'd be that the rack where of just returned videotapes, or like you see the drop box is all full, and your tape could be in there, the one you're looking for could be in there, and sometimes you'd wait for they'd be like, hey, are you guys gonna like empty that drop box anytime soon? They're like, oh yeah, we'll get to it. I'm like, yeah, but maybe you could do it now, and it's like, but then there's something about that, right, where you just like there's something to be said for like waiting and patience. Watching a TV show once a week is okay. Like having that anticipation, having that sort of like, I don't know, it's made these experiences more, like it made you have to savor them more and make them more sort of special. And I miss that for sure. I hate binging things. I think the only things I loved binging were things that I came to like late. Like I came late to The Wire, and then we just started watching The Wire, and it was like we couldn't stop.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Stuff like that. But in general, like I love the new season of True Detective, and I love watching it. I look forward to every Sunday True Detective being on, and like we kind of make sure that like we DVR, but like we kind of make sure maybe we can be home at 9 o'clock whenever it's on to watch it. And same with Walking Dead. It's like, oh man, there's like another week till we see what happens next, and like there's that anticipation is cool. So like I think the video store did that for you too. You had to like, if you missed something in the movies, it's like you had to wait, and then like if you got there and then on new release day and you didn't get your copy, it's like you had to wait. And I don't know, it made for some reason it's like movies seemed better for some reason, right? Well, and now they're like.
Absolutely. I think also, too, one of the things that I've thought about in why these movies seemed more special, if you want to say that, is that there was like a financial investment every time you wanted to watch something, and you only had it for a day, 24 hours, 2 days tops. And now if I want to watch a movie, if I grew up on Netflix or whatever the case may be, I have access to it anytime I want. So I feel like there's a huge disconnect there, where before you definitely had to put some work in order to get your hands on it,
Yeah, for sure.
And not to mention too, just the art of like walking the aisles and holding and looking at the art and looking at the back and reading the synopsis. That's a whole lost art that I just think is very hard to explain.
It's true. It is true. I do remember when I got my first DVD player and like how amazing that was, though. That was like the moment when the ape beats the other ape with the bone in 2001 and throws it in the air. I felt like that sort of. It was a glorious moment where I was like, oh my God, look at this picture, and it's on a disc, and it's like, what is this? I was so excited. I remember how special it was. The first DVD I ever got was Apocalypse Now, and I put it in.
Wow.
And I had a really cool surround sound speaker system in my room, and I remember putting that on for the first time. Now it's probably like if I went back, I'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, I do remember the transition into DVDs and being super excited, and then of course like buying a million DVDs. But like,
I remember the video stores then having 3 DVDs on the shelf, and then that grew to 10. And The Matrix, I remember, was kind of one of the big ones that came out on DVD.
Wait, which one? What was one of the big ones?
The Matrix, I remember being kind of the
Matrix,
big
sure,
one that most people then decided to go get a
What was the first? Well, what was the first like DVD? Like what year was the first DVDs come out?
I want to say
Probably like
I had to have been like like to the masses. I want to say that was like the late 90s, because I know I was still in high school when I started getting my hands on DVDs. And then if you want to even bring up some more old school stuff, you then had Columbia House, where you could get the 10 DVDs for a penny, that type of thing. You know. But the one of the other kind of hidden things that maybe they didn't really do at your Blockbuster, but I know they did at a lot of the mom and pop shops, is a lot of the posters and a lot of the cardboard cutouts would come in. You could lay claim to them if you wanted, and you could put your name on it.
Totally,
did you get involved in that?
Boxes of rolled up posters, and like with the black mark, like the Sharpie was written the title on the backs, and you'd kind of peer in. And I used to grab as many of those as possible. I didn't have enough room for the cardboard standees, which I always wanted. But
I know there was a pumpkin head one I like always wanted as a kid, but of course I never got my hands on it. Do you remember any posters that definitely were hanging proud on your walls back in the day?
That's a good question. I definitely have some. I think I had a Jim Jarmusch poster for like Mystery Train, or like some early one of his that I found in some video store that I thought was pretty cool. And I would find like weird. I had a Clerks poster for sure. God, that's a really good question. I shouldn't have smoked so much pot back in the day. I can remember these things way better. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember a lot about the posters. I do remember when the video store started getting DVDs in, though, and not having a DVD player at first, and being like, oh, one of these days, man, because like the DVD player's like $300-400 or something, right? $500.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
were like crazy at first, and then you were like, oh man, like, but then you felt. You didn't know. It was one of those things with like CDs and tapes. Where you're like, okay, I'll get a few of these CDs, and and maybe for my birthday, my parents will buy me a CD player, and that'll be cool, and I'll have some of these CDs. But like, man, I have like thousands of tapes. Of course, I'm gonna like have my tapes forever, and these are my tapes, and these are like my babies. And then at one point, like, you never played those tapes again, and then they just sat in the basement. And the same thing happened with DVDs. It was like, okay, like finally got that DVD player, and but what the problem is, like, you put in a movie and you see the DVD and you're like, I don't know how to like go back. I can't go back.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, now it's kind of
you transition out of it. Well, the thing was like not everything was available for a long time, right? So then you would have to go back to your VHS stuff, because like, well, I can't even get these. But at some point, it's just like everything was available. But I'm trying to remember like that moment when it just became DVDs in the video store instead of videotapes. Like I can't really like pinpoint the moment. It just sort of like anything, like all of a sudden people had phones in their hands, right?
Oh,
like,
absolutely. I mean, I know it happened fast, and especially, I grew up in a small town, so it definitely started off with just a shelf, and people are like, what are these DVDs all about? But then just like a virus, it just started spreading, and then the VHSs were now in boxes and on sale for $5 a piece, and that was just... when
and then 99 cents, and then they couldn't get rid of them for anything.
And now it's come full circle, where if you want to get your hands on a VCR now, it's kind of difficult. I've been trying to fix mine and get a new one. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
They stop manufacturing them, so they say like if you have a VCR, don't throw it away. It's actually going to be worth something.
I absolutely, and it's true too. I mean, there is something when you throw in that VHS and there's all the trailers before the movie that you remember, and it's kind of funny how like tracking can even like be like, oh, that's very nostalgic. I like that.
Oh God, I remember that. So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to have so many like I used to have all these videotapes of stuff that I taped off of TV or like HBO or. So you'd have like 3 movies on one tape.
Oh, of course,
a long, like a 6-hour videotape, and you'd tape like 3 movies. So like, you'd have like just the most random shit. It'd be like Return of the Jedi, Tootsie, and like RoboCop all on one tape, and you're like, that's something great about that. That like you could just fast forward, and then you'd have these old commercials, and like those are some great old tapes that I have that I haven't thrown away, because like sometimes I'm like, oh wow, look at what HBO looked like in 1992, or look at what such and such. Look at these commercials or whatever.
Absolutely. I know you just kind of dusted off a memory. I know for a fact I have a VHS copy of Star Wars when it first aired on TV, and it has all the commercials, some old school, like early 80s Wendy's commercials and stuff. And yeah, it's crazy.
Were there any commercials for like the figures or anything for toys?
No, I don't think yet, because it had just, I think it had just dropped. But actually, that's kind of going into my next question here is that
Oh,
the
I knew it. I'm
movies,
psychic.
of course, the movies of the 80s and 90s, without a doubt, but I think produced some of the best toys, where they would really put a lot of faith in some things and just say, fuck
Oh,
it,
yeah.
let's just put it out. So, do you remember anything that you were collecting back in the day that kind of stands
I
out?
had a sick Star Wars collection. I had a sick G.I. Joe collection, which I have 0 G.I. Joes left, but I have remnants of my old Star Wars toys. Like, I have the Darth Vader carrying case, and I have a bunch of figures. But man, I had the fucking Ewok village, and I saw it. I don't know what. Obviously, like, my mom threw everything out, and like everyone else, they're like, nah. Who knew?
Oh, of course,
And I
yeah.
remember seeing an Ewok village at some store or some convention. I don't know, it was like at a convention, and it was like $1,000 or like for a used Ewok village or something. It was some stupid thing. And I was
easily.
like, oh my God, please, why? And it's so funny, you know. I have like a little corner in my bedroom where I have like a little office area, and I have like a couple of toy shelves. And so like my kids are always like, "What are those toys? Can I play with those?" I'm like, "No, you can't. Don't even look at them. Don't even point. You can't even point." It's like Christopher Guest in Spinal Tap. He's like, he's like, "No, you can't even point at them. They cannot be played with. They cannot be played."
Do you have one prized item if if you could only grab one
Currently?
thing? Yeah, if out of the entire collection.
You mean if the building was on fire and all I could grab was a toy?
Yeah.
Instead of my
Assuming
kids, I'd let
assuming
the
the
kids go,
family
but
is
I grab
safe.
a toy.
Yes, it's the family's safe. You can only grab one toy.
No. Well, God, that's tough. What's funny is like none of the toys that I have currently, like not any single one has any super significance to me, because like almost none of them are from my original collection. The ones that I have like that are just old school are just all like kind of damaged and loose, like loose arms, and they're not that fun. I mean, I don't know. Like I got a couple of cool Funkos, and I have like some fun. I got to go to it's actually funny. It's coming up on Saturday. I got to go to Toy Fair last year. A friend of mine got me into Toy Fair, and I knew a couple of toy manufacturers through like Marvel stuff and through some of the events I had done, and but then I got to like become friends with them at Toy Fair. Like I got to hang with them, and I left with like such a bag of riches. Like people were so generous. They're like, "Here, just take some shit that we don't want to lug it back to our factory. We don't lug it back to our whatever."
Oh, that's a dream.
And then so I'm going back to Toy Fair actually on Saturday in New York, and Mezco called me up, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to come and like hang with us at our press event and be like our special guest and talk about some of the Marvel toys and just be cool?" And they're like, "And we'll give you some shit." I was like, "Yes, please." So like, like the problem is, having a small New York apartment and living with 3 women, meaning 2 daughters and a wife, not 3 women in like the bachelor sense. I don't have a lot of room for toys, and I get yelled at for having them. So like, I know I'm gonna come back. Like when I was at New York Comic Con this year, I came back with so much shit. It was one of those things where like Funko was like, "Yeah, take whatever you want." I was like, "Wah." I had to like.
Eventually, you're gonna have to get like a storage locker or something.
Yeah, restrain myself. But it's funny because like honestly, like I don't have anything that I'm looking at what I have, and I'm like, it's all kind of just displayed, and it's all fun, and it's all like it goes into like Aliens, Ghostbusters, Twin Peaks, Star Wars. That's kind of like where my toys live, in those like genres and things. And I think I have an Indiana Jones toy. Yeah, I've got one of those. One of the coolest things I have, and I think it's because it's so unusual and I've never seen anyone else have it. I picked it up a couple of years ago at New York Comic Con. It's someone made it. It's one of the, I got it in one of the sort of homemade artist booths. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man head that's like toasted with the expression when he gets roasted on a deer plaque, like a deer head mounted. And I have it on my wall.
Okay, I think that wins for which item you'd have to grab, because that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, like, look, I have a remote control X-01. I have a little Millennium Falcon drone. I have a Back to the Future 2 light-up car. And those are cool, right? Those are, like, cool and, like, oh, look, it's that. But they're just, like, you could buy those. Do you know what I mean? Like, but this is, like, I love when artists, who are fans of the stuff that I'm fans of do this stuff. And those are the coolest people I've met at all the conventions I've been at. It's just like seeing these people who are fans like me of the same stuff and making their own sort of toys out of it. Like at the last, actually, I was at a convention in where was it? Yeah, I was in Raleigh last summer, and this couple made these little sort of dioramas of horror movies. And they were all different. There was an Exorcist one. There was I bought the Shining one, and what it is, it's like in a, like when you go to a hotel lobby, there's like the bell, but sometimes the bell has like a little glass thing over it, like a dome over it.
Yes.
And you like lift it up, and okay, so it's like that old school thing. So it's like an old school diorama, like glass thing on a surface, and the bottom is the carpeting, that sort of like hexagonal carpeting or whatever it is. And then there's a little, I think it was Funko who made those tiny little horror like dolls, like those tiny little rubber figures of like some of the horror characters. Like, so it's the Jack Torrance one with the axe, and then they put a little typewriter in there, and the paper coming out says "All work and no play," and then there's a room key for 237. It's all inside this little glass diorama thing.
Oh, that's like kind of like it's kind of like a sideways like boat in a glass bottle type thing, but
exactly.
Like a movie universe.
Yeah. Exactly, but it looks like sort of like a bellhop kind of a thing. So it's got like a hotel. It's one of the coolest fucking things I've ever seen. I saw it. I was like, and I think it was like $20. I was like, yes, I'll buy your beautiful art that you made.
I think can you snap us a photo of that and the Stay Puft thing? I'd love to put it up on the site.
Yeah, sure.
That's awesome, man.
I'm happy to do that.
Very cool.
But yeah, so toys. I love toys. I have a very small collection. I wouldn't even call it a collection. The coolest shit that I ever got though was after a bunch of posts that I did on social media, I got to become friends with the folks at Sideshow Collectibles, and Sideshow was always like, I would see their stuff at like Barnes & Noble, or I would see their stuff at a convention. I'd be like, oh, it'd be nice to throw down, $400
yes.
for one of these beautiful statues. And the coolest thing was like, when they got in touch with me and they're like, hey, you seem like a cool guy, and we like your work in Punisher, and we'd love to send you some stuff. And I was like, okay. And I still have it in my closet. I haven't even taken it out of the box. I can't even I can't even touch it. They sent me a Han Solo Stormtrooper outfit, and they sent me a Doc Brown from Back to the Future 2.
What?
And they're the coolest. They're just beautiful. And so I have an open invitation. I'm going out to Los Angeles at the end of the month, and they're like, when you come out here, they're like, reserve a day, and you're coming to Sideshow and touring the place and hanging out with us and getting some toys. I was like, yes, please. They are like, in my mind, they are just like them and Mezco are just like, they make the most beautiful, beautiful stuff. And
they're works of art. Yeah, I mean, they're running the show.
Yeah, they are. I really respect the hell out of them. I think they respect how much I respect them, because I don't think there's so many actors who go gaga over toys like me. So it's been a cool, like, sort of behind the scenes kind of beautiful friendship.
Is there a part of you that's just hoping that maybe just they'll throw out a Sam Stein figure for you?
Never happening. Never happening. It's funny. I got into a whole fake Twitter fight with Funko about it. But then when I talked to them in person, they were like, yeah, I know the problem is like all the licensing stuff with Marvel. They're like very weird about licensing, and they'll only license certain things. If you notice, there's very few Funkos and very few toys made out of the Netflix TV shows. There's only like a Daredevil, there's a Punisher. I think that's it. There might be a Luke Cage, maybe a Jessica Jones. There might be but like none of the secondary characters, none of the other characters, and it sucks. I think they made a joke. They were like, we're going to put you in a 2-pack with Ben Barnes, and you'll be all bloody. I was like, fuck yourselves. I think that was their Twitter. That was their response on Twitter. I was like, yeah, fuck you, Funko. It's the last Funko I buy.
But hey,
man, that would be cool. That would be super cool. I think I'll have to wait for the next project though.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you get yourself in with the group, you know what I mean, and then the next project comes along. I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Them and they make one of them, and it's worth like $1 billion.
Of course, yeah, it's a matter of time at this point.
Well, maybe someone listening to this podcast will take it upon themselves. Somebody did what were they called? They're like a mini fig of me as Sam Stein, and they took a picture of it and put it up on. Somebody who does that on, I forget what their Instagram handle is, but they put it up on Instagram. They're like, here you go, man. I was like, oh my God, how cool. And I thought they'd send it to me. I never got it.
I know, that was my next question. Like, they didn't send it to you? They just waved it in front of your face?
I know, it's crazy. Somebody did, people do great fan art online, and it's so cool. I love seeing it. And this one beautiful artist, it's so funny. like, I know them by their Instagram handles, and so, like, in my mind, I don't know their, like, names, so I wish I could pinpoint them, but I could totally take a picture of this, too, and send it out and put her info. But she does this amazing Walking Dead fan art stuff, and I'm friends with a bunch of the people in Walking Dead, and I started following her because I liked her stuff, and I think I commented on one of them, and she was like, "Oh my God, you were so great in Punisher." She's like, "I'd love to, you know." I was like, "Oh, hopefully you'll make something of me one day when I'm on The Walking Dead," because she knew I was a big fan. And then her next post on her thing was, "I made one for Michael Nathanson because he's such a big fan of Walking Dead, and I like him." So it's like me as zombie Sam Stein.
Oh, love it.
It's so cool. It's the coolest thing ever. You could find it. I posted it on my Instagram, so you could see it there somewhere. But that was cool. I was like, yes, fake mashups of me and art, fan art. I love it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I just like to geek out with people. I'm literally just a fan who got lucky for 5 seconds, and now I'm back in the real world. That's all.
Well, as far as like, I mean, where people are knowing you from, I mean, besides just your film career alone, very extensive. You've popped up in everything, Law and Order, The Good Wife, Orange is the New Black, and of course, you came on my radar with The Punisher. Out of all those TV shows, is there any highlight that sticks out in your mind, or one experience that was your most memorable?
I loved working on a show called The Knick. K-N-I-C-K,
yes.
Which was Steven Soderbergh's TV show about doctors in 1900. That was an amazing experience. I had done a movie with Steven Soderbergh called Side Effects, and had an amazing time and played a really cool part in it, and became friendly with him. And I heard they were doing this like period doctor show in New York, and I was like, oh, this sounds amazing. And they called me up, and they were like, listen, we have this part, and Steven just, it's perfect for you, and he wants you to play it. And it's kind of, we wanted to kind of tailor make it for you. I was like, that sounds great. So it was one of these things that sort of was kind of presented to me as, this is you, and we want you to bring what you bring to the table. So it felt very like sort of, we have knighted you, sir, as worthy of this. And I got to come in and kind of play a character that I had not played before, which is a much more buttoned up, kind of intense, focused character. And usually I'm playing more funny, quirky, kind of edgy people, and this guy was way edgy in a way, sort of a more sort of restrained way, and it was super fun. And I got to like learn ancient sort of surgical techniques, and I got to work with Clive Owen and all these amazing actors, and to work with Steven Soderbergh on 2 seasons of the show, which I think is still one of the greatest television shows of all time. And the best is when Barack Obama talked about his favorite shows and said The Knick was his favorite TV show. I was like, got a pretty good.
That's a game changer.
Audience for that show. And if you ask people like about that show, people are like, oh my God, that's one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. And whenever people sort of recognize me from that, that's like my most gratifying. It's funny, I was at a convention, obviously for Punisher, because that's the only reason I'd be at a convention, and this girl came up to me, and she waited in line to see me. A short line, but that's fine. I'm fine with it. But she waited in line to see me, and I was like, I was prepared to talk about Punisher, and she was like, she brought me a copy of the Knick soundtrack to sign. Like, she's a super fan of the Knick, and that's why she came to the convention, to meet me so I would sign her CD. I was like, holy shit, that's cool. It was so, and I like forced her to take like 8 pictures with me, and she was like, oh okay. And I think she way more made my day than I made her day, because I just thought it was so neat that, someone who would like appreciate the show so much, because I think it's a real work of art. But if you haven't seen it, check it out. It was on Cinemax for a couple seasons a few years ago. I think our second season aired in 2015. Yeah.
It's kind of
so
like,
cool.
Is it one of those things where, obviously it's very gratifying when someone appreciates the work you did on a project that you were super psyched about? Like, I mean, what percentage, just being a working actor, how often do you actually are working on something where you are like, completely thrilled to be here, as opposed to, hey, it's work, and you're going to give 110%, but at the end of the day, it's work,
Yeah. Honestly, I try to find joy in everything that I do, that I get to do as an actor. It's really like, it's a gift to be able to like, to apply your craft as a job, or apply your passionate about and get paid for it is sort of everyone's, I think, dream. I'm super grateful. And so I honestly, yeah, there have been, I would say there have definitely been TV shows or movies that I've done where I was like, yeah, okay, this isn't the greatest. But when there's a camera there and they say action and there's stuff going on and there's lights and there's action, there's things going, you're just like, man, you just become a kid again. You're just like, this is what I loved. I watched movies in a dark movie theater when I was a kid and always thought, man, maybe someday I could be there and do that. And to be able to do that every single time, it's always like thrilling for me. So even if the project is not, the most highbrow, I think for the most part, I've had a career so far that has allowed me to do mostly stuff that I'm proud of. And you know what? Like, I've done movies where, I'm not going to name them, but I've done movies where, like, I got paid and filmed for, a month or two, and then, like, the movies never even got released, Like, but the experience, like, I can think of one particular experience, like, was amazing. And I made, like, super close friends with people that I still talk to, and I got paid to do what I love, and it was really exciting and fun and educational, and, like, so it's just like every experience just kind of, molds you into the sort of person, artist you are, and you kind of just have to roll with it. But yeah, I would say the only thing I would differentiate are, like, times when I'm not enjoying it, like, in terms of, like, the people are assholes, or there's, like, a lot of divas on set, or people are just being difficult, or not, not being grateful at all, or just kind of being, sort of typically obnoxious Hollywood types.
Without naming any names, was there anyone? Because you've gotten to work
John
along.
Bernthal is the worst. Obviously.
With your film career, with your film career alone, you've worked with, like, the absolute icons, whether it's Steve Soderbergh, or we're talking about Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jude Law. So obviously you have a lot of kind of pinch yourself moments, because it seems like you've never lost that, just being a movie fan in general. So along with that, though, were there any people that you were super excited to meet that, without naming any names, someone who just completely just bummed you out when you actually got to work with them and meet them as a person?
Yes.
Short and sweet. Yes. Is that kind of when the being a professional just kind of kicks in, and, just...
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't really... I don't think there's... I've never met... I don't think I've ever met, like, or worked with someone who I was, like, a big fan of, who was, like, a total jerk. But I've definitely met and worked with people who are well-known who were jerks. But I think I've never been totally... The only time I've ever been disappointed in my life is when, like, I've met people casually, just as people, and been, like... And they've been not very nice or, like, cool to meet me, and I've just been like, oh, you're not a very nice person. And that kind of bums you out. But... in general, it's funny to see some, like, iconic people, like, sure, I grew up on Martin Scorsese movies, and so, like, to be suddenly on set with him, and he's, like, directing me, I was like, what the fuck is going on? There was a moment, I remember, I've talked about this, I think, in some other podcasts, but, like, there's a moment on Wolf of Wall Street where, like, we were talking about the scene, and Leonardo DiCaprio's on my left, and Scorsese's on my right, and I'm in the middle of them, and they're talking to me about the scene, and we're all talking, and the three of us, and I'm like, I was like, I have to just, and I was having a complete out-of-body experience in that moment, and I had to just remind myself that, like, you better fucking appreciate this moment, because this is not going to come along very often. And also, when you were, like, 14, 15 years old, did you ever think you would be standing here having this conversation with people like this? So, yeah, man, like... It's hard for me to get bummed out most of the time, because I just love it so much, and I love every aspect of working. It's just a blast. It's just so fun. And doing Punisher was like, it was being like an action hero kind of, and like being like, coming, helping to bring like a comic book icon to life, and joining the MCU and all of that shit. Come on, like, for someone like me, that was just, it's just been, yeah, it was crazy. The greatest moment, I think, out of that was for sure when Joe Quesada drew that cast photo of everybody. That's sort of beautiful. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like it's the cast. It's sort of like a Drew Struzan style portrait of all the cast members. almost like coming out of a comic book style.
Oh no,
And,
I'll put that up on the podcast so
if
people
you
can
Google,
see.
yeah, you can Google it. It's just if you Google like Joe Quesada drawing of Punisher cast, it'll pop right up. They made it as a gift for the cast members. He drew it specifically for us. But then of course, they made a bunch. People started buying it and became like a collector's item. But yeah, it's one of my prized possessions because I have a very special one, and I had it framed because I brought it to his studio and in his apartment, and he wrote a really funny message right below it because I'm strategically placed on the bottom next to Ben Barnes, and it says, "Michael, we should have killed Ben. I love you, Joe Quesada." So I think that's a pretty memorable poster. But yeah, man, I would say. We could have a separate conversation about assholes in the business because I have lots to say about that, and there are quite a few. But yeah, I've been lucky. I've been lucky to work with some really cool people, and I hope I continue to do so.
Well, whether it was time you spent on Wolf of Wall Street or Side Effects or The Punisher, being a movie fan, were you tempted to take any mementos at the end of the day to put in your memories box? I know that might be frowned upon in the biz, but it's always something I think about.
Of course. I took things like I had like business cards made for certain characters in some of those movies, and so of course I took like a couple of the business cards that they made for me, and on Punisher, yeah, there was like every day I was there, I was like, oh, I want that, oh, I want that, oh, I want that. I did have to restrain myself, like the newspaper headline of Frank Castle being arrested and all that stuff, and like that shit was everywhere. But you gotta just be cool. What I did was I just snapped a bunch of pictures, and they said you can't. They're like, don't release any pictures until like after the show, and blah blah. I was like, sure, but I would go around and just take pictures to like make sure that this was all real, so I could go home at night and be like, oh yeah, that's the battle van, and oh yeah, that's this is like real, like I'm here.
They didn't let you keep your badge at the end of wrapping Punisher?
No,
no.
They don't let you keep anything really. I kept the back, I kept the cloth on the back of my chair with my character's initials and the the name of the show on the back, that kind of thing. But no, I didn't get any souvenirs like that. Oh, I did get a cool souvenir. Steve Lightfoot, who's the showrunner on the show, and some of the Marvel producers, they got together and they framed the storyboard of my death scene and wrote some really nice messages on it,
and awesome.
Gave that to me in a frame. Yeah, that was pretty badass. So that was a cool memento. But yeah, of course, I wanted to steal some stuff. I never did that.
Well,
damn, I should have.
Well, okay. Well, everyone knows that there's no success without failure, and I'm sure as an actor you're very familiar with your share of disappointments, and also you are definitely someone who's put in the hard work, whether it's playing Mucus in the Advil congestion relief commercials or putting in the time touring with the Lion King out on the road. You've definitely kind of plugged away and earned your spot where you are today. Do you have any advice for someone out there who's the actors who listen to our show who might have find themselves in a rut right now, who are just maybe some advice that you wish someone told you back in the day when you were still plugging away?
Oh man, it never gets easier.
Truth.
I mean, people might look at me and say, oh, you've been in this, you've been in that, and you've had a lot of success. I mean, I definitely feel like, I'm not even close to where I want to be in my career. So, the business is always really hard, and I think the biggest advice you can give someone who's coming through the industry and, the best advice you can give someone coming through the industry at a younger age is, always check in with yourself and and ask yourself if you're how passionate you are about this, because you have to know that you are, entering a life of rejection and insecurity and not knowing and being a gypsy, because even the most famous people in the world, even someone like John Bernthal, sometimes he has trouble getting jobs and he gets rejected and he doesn't know where his next job is coming from. There's no such thing as job security in this business, and so you have to just kind of love what you do, love that sort of unknown life, and don't quit, because that's the thing. So many people can't handle the rejection, can't handle the not knowing, can't handle I'm not good enough because I'm not working. But if you're if enough people tell you you're good at it and you're passionate about it, and you don't quit, you can outlast a lot of people, and as you get older, you start to work more. So I think that's, but I think it's not for everybody. So I think that's something to really, really check in with yourself about.
I like it. Very, very solid advice, definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry, so just a couple more questions here, kind of winding down. You have the honor of solidifying yourself in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is an honor among any fanboy out there would probably kill just to have that honor. When we have Avengers Endgame coming up, do you have any predictions for how this thing is gonna wrap up?
Wait, for what's I missed the last thing you said.
Oh, for Avengers Endgame coming up, do you have any predictions?
Avengers.
Yes.
Avengers Endgame. I was like, what is that? Maybe I know things, so I can't really talk about it.
Oh, okay. See, my theory is that we're gonna.
I want to sound cooler than I am. I don't. No, I don't know. I didn't even want to think about it. I just wanted to wash over me like a beautiful cold or hot shower. I don't know what it's going to be like.
If we're talking about quantum realms and different realities, I mean, is there a 0.1% chance that a new reality where Sam Stein has not met his demise?
I begged them. I went to Marvel and I was like, I begged them for a prequel. I was like, guys, we could do a prequel. Like, where was Sam Stein during this and that and the other? And like, who was he part of? There's so many he always there would be a lot of moments in the show where I would talk about, oh, well, I can't really talk about that, or someday when I know you better, I'll talk about that, or there was something always so mysterious about him, and everyone was always like, oh, he's a bad guy, he's this. So I feel like he always had secrets that we never really got into, and I don't know. He could be anybody or anything. I think he had this very rich superhero life at some point, and maybe they can create a superhero backstory for Sam Stein, and why he ended up being a schlub at the Homeland Security office, but no. 0.000. Although I will say Jeff Loeb personally did say to me face to face how bummed out he was to have to that I had to die, and they thought long and hard about ways that they could keep me, but they were like, we need you to die for the story, and I was like, because that's what we always had in mind, and there's no way around it, and the other characters have to have their development, and unfortunately you're a victim of that, and I was like, that's cool, but yeah, I know that they were sad to lose me.
Well, I mean, I think it definitely had an effect and was needed, to kind of give the audience that gut punch, because a tip of the hat to you as an actor is that, the role of Sam Stein, it was a great role and all, but I feel like without your added flavor to it and your performance is kind of what made it a more memorable performance, where perhaps in the hand of another actor, I just don't know if it would have been as heavy as a role. But after even The Punisher ended, it was like kind of funny how you were like, it's funny how like the Sam Stein character is still just kind of in the forefront of the memories of that show, Thanks,
man. It's funny, and as people are watching season 2, a lot of people have reached out, and before it came out, everyone was like, if Sam Stein's not appearing in season 2, I have no interest in watching. I'm like, oh, I was like, that's ridiculous. But yeah, I don't know. I think there was something about my character that I think resonated. I think I was very real. I was very sort of vulnerable and open and funny, and I didn't allow the heaviness of the show to really drag my character down. And I think the show can get a bit heavy-handed, and that's just, also the nature of what it is. But, I tried very hard to kind of keep a wink to the audience as much as possible while I was doing it. And, yeah, it was a blast, man. I miss it. I was sad when, I was like, oh, maybe, he could be a Force ghost. They're like, no, that's not. We may own that property, but it's not happening. But yeah, I appreciate the love, the bit of love that I've gotten for that character, and to be part of this, even just for a fleeting moment, to be part of that universe was just super cool. And so, onwards and upwards, I guess. Well,
we'll keep the hashtag Sam Stein prequel alive and running.
Oh, I like that.
All right, and the last question I have for you is, it's kind of a tradition here at Back to the Video Store, is a lot of the video stores had the staff pick section, the favorites. So my selection that I added to our set was the movie Critters, which was my favorite growing up. Our guest, Renely Santiago, we had Con Air put up for him. And Jason Lively, who played Rusty in National Lampoon's European Vacation, he selected the Road Warrior as his staff pick. So, Michael Nathanson, what are you putting up on our Back to the Video Store staff pick section?
It's Time Bandits.
Time Bandits, I love it. I absolutely love it. Why?
My favorite movie.
Why Time Bandits? Can you sell us on Time Bandits in 30 seconds or less to anyone out there who's never seen it?
Holy shit. Okay, directed by Terry Gilliam, an early Terry Gilliam film, the best Terry Gilliam film in my opinion. People will say Brazil, but no, Time Bandits is better. It's a group of time-traveling little people who kidnap a young boy in modern-day London, although modern day at this time was the early 80s, and he gets to go on these adventures. He enters his own wall in his bedroom that becomes a weird time warp where he goes and time travels with these band of crazy little people through time periods like Napoleon and ancient Greece and Robin Hood, and he visits all of these fun people, and it's like every kid's dream to just like have a bunch of like cool misfit sidekicks take you on a weird time traveling adventure, and it's got the most amazing actors, and Sean Connery's in it, which is just enough for me, and half of Monty Python's in it as well, and oh my God, what else can I say about it? It's one of those movies that you really just like. As you're watching, you're like, what the fuck is this movie? Like, what am I watching? And it's got a really twisted, dark, totally like leaves you feeling with a gut punch at the end when you're like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be like a fun fantasy family movie, and it ends so horribly and dark, and you're like, what just happened? And it's about God and death and the universe, and it's so existential and weird, and yet it's for kids, and go see it.
If that didn't sell anyone on it, I don't know what will.
You have to see it. Everyone has to see it. I will tell you, my biggest pet peeve as a movie fan is when people don't know what I'm talking about when I mention Time Bandits. It is like the lost classic of all time.
Well, I mean, going back to the movie posters, it was one of those movies that had a phenomenal poster that just, grabbed you right away when you saw it, Absolutely.
Is that with the giant's head with the ship on top?
Exactly, yeah. And you were just I have to see this. I don't even know what it's about. Don't need to read the back. Yeah. I'm watching Time Bandits.
Yeah, there's so many creatures, and it's all practical effects. Almost all practical effects. There's a few like digital things, but like it's that classic sort of thing. And my runner-up would be the Dark Crystal.
Oh, love it. I love it.
Very excited about the sequel to the prequel to Dark Crystal coming out on Netflix. Very excited.
Well, Michael Nathanson, we are going to put up Time Bandits on our set here under staff picks, recommended by Michael. I know people can check you out on michaelnathanson.net. Is there anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, .net. Sorry, everyone. You can follow me on Instagram, Michael_Nathanson. Follow me on Twitter, M_Nathanson1. Nothing specific that I'm going to be in to plug really, but I have a couple of cool things in the works. I have a TV pilot that I wrote with a friend that has some traction that people are interested in, so we're having some meetings and pitching around a potential show that's kind of set in the nerd universe that I would host, which is kind of exciting, so that could be something to talk about soon, and just kind of auditioning and figuring out what the next thing is, and being a dad most of the time.
Oh, I love it, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Michael, and for joining us in the Video Store. To all you listeners, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Back to the Video Store, or check us out at backtothevideostore.com, and stay tuned for our next giveaway and live show announcements. So thanks again, Michael, and please remember to be kind and rewind. Good night, everybody.